welcome to another edition of The Spin, and currently we're doing a series on Australia's National Disability Insurance Scheme, better known as the NDIS. And today I'm very excited to be able to have a bit of a sneak preview at a new service by the NDIS called Individual Living Options. And one of the experts on this is a fellow by the name of Terry Matter from My Supports. Let's say hello to Terry. G'day, Terry.
Hello everyone.
Hey, how you going, mate? You're in Holland.
Very good. Yes, on holiday.
Probably couldn't come home if you wanted to right now.
Well, it's tricky. But yep, tricky. Going to have to get flown home by the Air Force, I think.
Well, that's all right. As long as they don't drop you like a bomb and if they do, I hope they get you in your backyard, mate, with your wheelchair intact.
Yep.
Speaking of which, if you do want to get up in the air, in Thailand, Anywhere on Wheels does parasailing. We can take you on that.
Okay.
All right.
I'm keen.
Well, before we get on to what we're going to talk about, which is the individual living options, I want people to learn just a little bit about My Supports. So we might just play a little bit of a video if that's okay.
My Supports was founded in 2015 by two people in wheelchairs and a long-time carer of his mother who had MS. Today, around half of our staff have the lived experience of disability. In the NDIA terminology, we are a DPO-FO organisation, which stands for Disabled Persons Organisation, Family Organisation. That is, an organisation founded, run and employing a majority of people with the lived experience of a disability.
One of the differences of My Supports is the neighbourhood team model that we work with. They're not in an office away from your area. We're there, we're in the community.
The best thing that ever happened to me was having my daughter. My daughter was 13 months old when she was diagnosed with global developmental delay. So my experience has been with my child from the age of 13 months diagnosis through to now. The point of difference with My Supports is that we bring a lot of empathy and understanding about disability in general. The NDIS is always evolving, and with the rollout of the individual living options packages, the NDIA will increasingly work to support people to choose where they live, with whom they live, and how they live, and have the supports they need to make that happen. There are many options available, which is great. Host families or individuals. Living with a supportive family or person, sharing their lives and providing support where required. Co-resident or live-in support workers, where a person lives with a participant in their own home and provides support and companionship. Living alone, where a person lives by themselves with supports built around them to ensure they are safe and happy. And there are lots of living together options where supports can be tailored. Sharing with a friend, sharing with a family member or partner, even sharing with another NDIS participant. There are a lot of options and it can sound confusing, but we can help. Discuss and explore if these supports are right for you, help you to take the steps to get these in your plan, get it all in place and working great, including great hosts or co-residents or support workers.
Oh, the future looks fabulous. It's not easy. I'm not saying every day is easy. It's obviously really challenging, but you know what? I'm not giving up. You know, if she needs something, then I will find a way to get what she needs.
You should be living where you want, with who you want and how you want. We would love to work with you to make that happen.
That's pretty awesome, Terry. And you were one of the founders of My Supports, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, on that day I was in New South Wales, so there's lots of photos of my fellow founders. But that's why I wasn't in that. You don't see me in that video very much.
They didn't send you down there on purpose, did they?
I'd steal all the limelight there, Robbie.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Look, what we have to talk about today, we sort of messed up our timing a bit today. We probably won't be able to fit into 30 minutes, so we might sort of make this a two-part program if we can, if that's all right with you, because we want to talk about the individual living options, which is a new service being implemented by the NDIS, and it also involves sort of tweaking the old SIL as well. And this is a fairly major step. And for the interest of being quick, the individual living options, there's four four basic plans on that. Can you run through them for us?
Yeah, I'll go through them there, Rodney. But you're in a wheelchair. I'm in a wheelchair. We've been in wheelchairs a time, and we're also not the youngest blokes on the block.
Speak for yourself.
You probably back in the day, you stayed at home with your parents, and if you needed support, you stayed there until they got too old, and then you often had no other options but to go and into a group home. So there was just those two options, and I guess the NDIS about 2-3 years ago started realising that, look, there had to be more options from that for people who needed support to live in the community. And obviously, if you don't need any supports, you make your way in life, then you go ahead and do and organise your own things. But they came up with a range of options for people who needed some more supports, and as you said, they come under four main buckets. But there is a lot of flexibility around them, and you mentioned that there's the host arrangements you saw in the video, where you may want to stay with with somebody else in their home, and they provide companionship and support. There's co-residents or home sharers, so someone who comes and stays with you. There's lots of different sharing arrangements, so sharing with a friend you may know, another NDIS participant, with a family member, and then there's a potential where people really want to live alone but maybe need some support around that to keep that safe and make sure that they have the supports they need. So there's living alone arrangements where you can combine with a friendly neighbour. So look, there's a lot of interesting options there, Rodney, and I guess it's all about what suits a client.
Yep, and the way I look at it is, and of course, I'm so very happy the NDIS has arrived, because like you did state, we didn't have any of those even that to look forward to when we were a lot younger, but we did get on with life, and we did have so far I've had a terrific life, and I'm sure you have too. But this is making a huge difference to people and their dignity and how they can get about life, and that's probably the wonderful thing about it. So I'm really, really glad that it is here now. Now, to get onto the ALOs, the host arrangements, the point that's made there, I'll just quickly read it. Host families or individuals living with non-related supportive family or person, sharing their lives and providing some support. In return, the host receives an agreed reimbursement payment as well as board and lodging from the DSP to cover day-to-day costs. Now, the point there is it's got to be non-related, so you can't just live with your family and do it that way, I'm guessing.
Not if you want to receive the host payment. There's a rule under the NDIS, and that applies for all supports, that family members can't be paid for support providing to their direct relation, with some very, very, very minor exceptions. So per definition, a host can't be a person with a family member. However, there are ILOs, individual living options, around a family. And that's where you have a situation where someone really wants to stay with their family, a family member, a sibling, or parents. But what you find, Rodney, and you may know this from your own experience, families end up taking on more and more and more. And that can lead to some pressures and some stresses in that arrangement.
And it can go the other way too, where you might have a family that doesn't really give good care, who pressurizes their son or daughter or whatever to stay with there for their benefit and not really give the care. So that's probably why some of those things are in there as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Some people, some parents, I think the society's changing very quickly, but particularly some older parents. So again, people our age and older, there were different ideas about disability back then. That to be a good parent, you really looked after and protected your child. If you had a child with a disability, my mum was exactly the same. I had an accident when I was 15, and I went back to a small country town, and 15-year-old in a wheelchair at home, And my mum thought, well, that's it. You know, I've got lots of other kids, but this boy is I'm going to have to look after him and protect him for the rest of his life. And when I started talking about, look, I might move to Perth, you know, she almost had a heart attack. So there is that adjustment. You're absolutely right.
Yep. And look, you understand why they're doing it out of love and care, but sometimes it does kind of stunt the growth as in ways. I had a pretty wonderful mum and dad, so I was lucky. Now, number 2, the co-residents. Oh, before that, number 1, it says that the host receives an agreed reimbursement payment and board and lodging from the person. So is that the reimbursement at some sort of like the same cost that they would pay a support worker to come in and help them? Is that about what that would be?
So how that works is that the host is paid an amount of money, which is funded via your NDIS plan for providing that home and providing an agreed level of supports that they may able to be they agree to provide and what the client may need. Now that payment is, I guess it's similar to some of the old the foster payments that you see in the various foster schemes.
Yep.
So look, the benefit is that payment can often be tax free because the tax office sees it as a reimbursement of your house costs.
Okay.
And look, it's not the only support that'll be a part of that ILO package. The ILO package has a few components, and in the situations where the host it's not optimal for the host to provide all the supports, you will have support workers coming
Okay.
into the home as well.
See, I know nothing about this, which is why we're talking to you. So what I'm bringing up are my thoughts, and some of them may be right offline and quite foolish, I don't know. But looking at that, the person is providing the home for the person with a disability, like myself, to live in, correct?
Yes.
Now, NDIS will not pay for your rent, but it seems to me under that system, in a way, they are paying for your rent.
You're spot on, Rodney. You discovered a little bit of a hidden trick in the NDIS, because it's as a general rule, the NDIS doesn't pay for your house, except there is a different type of funding package called a specialised disability accommodation payment, and that's very restrictive. That's generally only going to a small group, 4, 5, 6, 7% of people with disability who have very complex physical needs and aren't able to access the traditional housing market. But you discovered a really good one there, Rodney. That's a kind of a backdoor payment to have the NDIS pay for your house. But look, let's not say that too loud, because they'll jump on that.
Nobody listen to this. Nobody listen to this one. Look, I better tell you one thing. I only get called, and I forgot to tell you before we came on, I only get called Rodney when I'm in trouble, so I'll slip it down to Rod. I keep thinking I'm in
Rod.
trouble every time you call me Rodney. Anyway, so that seems like a pretty interesting model. You've got the co-resident one, and that says live-in support workers. A participant lives in their own home with a person who agrees to provide a level of support and companionship. In return, they receive reduced rent and or a payment. Now, I don't understand why the person going in there to help them would have to pay any rent at all. So I'm a little bit confused on that one.
Look, the starting point when we do those arrangements are that if you can structure it where the co-resident or the home share is paying no rent, you have a lot higher chance of attracting a good co-resident. Look, a good example of that one, Rod, is 2 young blokes. We just worked on an arrangement, wonderful families, 2 young blokes with intellectual disabilities wanted to share together, but they clearly needed some support to make that happen. And so a co-resident, a lovely young woman, is going to move in with them. She's actually getting free rent, and but she's also getting paid quite some hours of support to support the boys, particularly around meal times and a lot of prompting. It's amazing what people can do for themselves once they living away a little bit from mum and dad.
And once they're allowed to.
they need
Once they're allowed to.
True.
Sorry.
And well, this family is one of these new generations of families, Rodney. The expectations of younger people who have children with disability is different. They say, why can't my son or daughter follow the same life phases and changes that the other kids do? So look, it is changing.
That's fantastic. So we'll quickly go through these, and if you don't mind, we might get into them a bit deeper at another stage. We've got the living together, where a participant lives in their own home with a person, or more than one person, importantly, who they have chosen via their existing relationships, whether that be intimate, I guess that means a girlfriend or whatever, family or friendship. This can, or boyfriend,
Yep.
sorry, I don't want to be sexist. This can include other people with a disability. It's a flexible package that can allow for the sharing of supports where required, and in some cases, payments for some supports. Now, the thing I've got there is if you've got two people staying in there, perhaps that are both on the NDIS, they're definitely going to require supports. Otherwise, not even one of them could be there.
Yeah, I guess it's about what type of level of support. Sometimes do they need someone to live with them, like that example that I just mentioned there? Or do they need people just coming in during the day to help around specific times? It depends on the levels of support there. But look, the options that you just walked through there, you see there's very big differences between, some friend you may know and who may not have a disability and you want to live together. And I've done that in the past. When I first moved to Perth, I met some blokes for a uni and we ended up sharing a house. And under the ILO arrangement, if you were in that situation and those friends agreed to do some help with your daily routines, for example, perhaps if you needed that, they could receive a payment for that. And that may create the potential for you to live more. I was pretty lucky. I was able to meet some friends, and if you're in a wheelchair, you sometimes need help with things. No matter with lifting and things like that. But look, I was pretty lucky. I had some connections there I could lean on, but the ILOs would make it possible for somebody to do that in a more consistent, structured way over the years.
And if you've got two people that are on the NDIS, perhaps sharing a house, it potentially could save the NDIS some money as well, because if I require 40 hours of support, and some of that includes cleaning the floors and tidying the house and whatever, and there's two of us in there, you don't need to clean and tidy the house twice.
No, that's right. And you touched on something there, Rod, about, I guess it's you can't run away from the issue of money. The NDIA is a big pool of funds, but it's not bottomless.
And it's not there to be abused.
It's not there to be abused. And there was the parliamentary report just came out this week actually, around, you mentioned the SIL arrangements, which is funding to group homes. And it was quite startling that around a third of all NDIS funding went to the 6% of people living in group homes. That's an incredible amount of money, given the scheme's a $20 billion scheme, to 6%. It's very expensive for people to live in those group facilities. People don't realise. And what you said there about living more mainstream, living more in community and building on networks of people, sharing things if needed, can often be a way to do things in a more efficient way and achieve better results, which is what it's about.
It's really encouraging. Now, the number 4, which is the living alone option, for me is the one that I get excited about, because I feel that sometimes when people are forced, even though we've been given a great boost with the NDIS, I'm all about dignity. I'm a big believer in giving people dignity and individualistic lives and so on if they want them. And it doesn't matter how much help you get. If you're forced to live in a group home, sometimes you still feel like you're a disabled person living in a group home. And this option, to me, gives people the chance to say, I am independent. I am me. This is where I live. This is my space. I'll put that poster on that wall, and I'll put what I want in the fridge, and I'm a very happy person. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. Look, that living alone arrangements, actually, I don't think, I'd probably talk to about, well, with no exaggeration, probably 10 to 20 families a week who are interested in exploring ILOs. And Rod, all of them start with that living, almost all start with, my son and daughter would like to live alone. And look, there's sometimes some hurdles around that. I'll be honest, that's expensive to live alone. You know, if you're a rich fellow like yourself, you can afford to go out and rent a place. But some people struggle. So the rents in capital cities is just phenomenal. And if you're on a disability support pension, that's a struggle, and it means you've got to get on the public waiting list, and they can be years. So look, if you cross that hurdle,
Yep.
and you look at living alone, an ILO package can be really beneficial. And now, where we're seeing that's having an impact is perhaps people with psychosocial disabilities or mental health challenges, people with perhaps mild intellectual disabilities, or even mild physical disabilities, where they want to live alone, but there can be risks of isolation, and there can be risks of perhaps things just falling a little bit off the rails. And so what an ILO allows is an ILO provider like My Support to get involved. And you can put some supports around that, such as, I don't know if you read there, Rod, about the friendly neighbour concept.
Yes.
So that means you find someone in the neighbourhood. And, you know, for some people, it's really useful to know there's somebody down the street who they can pops in on them, connects them to the local things, connects them to things you need to know in the suburb. And that can make a big difference to those isolation issues.
And you've touched on a question that I had when I read it, but before I get to that, please don't tell my dad I'm rich. I'll have to give him more rent. Just the friendly neighbourhood thing, that'd be a wonderful thing, but is there anything in it for the neighbour?
Well, that's right. Yeah, there is. So they receive, you look at what's required, and obviously people need to prioritise that. People need to make room for that in their lives. And so a modest payment, and that's just a set payment. There's not tracking hours and rosters
So
and
not
stuff.
too
You want to get away from all that. Just say
What would
it's a
you consider a
retainer.
modest payment, Terry, in your mind?
Well, look, you look at some of these arrangements. It's only a couple of hours a week that they're available.
So maybe
Pop in for a cup of tea, and you look at what's an hour rate of equivalent type work, and you say, look, we'll pay that fortnight. It's just going to go into your bank account. Don't worry about rostering and doing all that stuff, because we want you to just have at the back of the mind that I can prioritise this because I am getting a bit of a compensation for it. But we don't want you to treat it as something where you're a support worker logging in and logging off. We want you to. It's got to be about that relationship, and there's got to be that personal element to it, which is the priority.
Now, look, Terry, that I know you haven't got long today, so I've just got a few
No,
more
go
questions.
ahead. Go ahead, Rob. You go ahead and ask your questions. I'm really enjoying the discussion.
Well, we'll do another one anyway, so that you can do what you need to
Sounds
do.
good.
But if we can, what I'll do is I'll ask you a few questions here, and then maybe next week, I'll invite the people that have watched it to send me some questions. We'll get you back on and we'll answer them. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. Just before we sort of wrap up the first part, we'll call it part one. I got a few questions from my provider lady that is absolutely wonderful that I do work with, and of course she's excited about it. Do you know when it's actually going to roll out? When mainstream?
Yep. So we're doing arrangements all around Australia now.
Okay.
So we were fortunate that we're in the trial. The trial was held in Western Australia, and we were one of the few providers who are in Western Australia and also in the other states. So
will you work with other providers, like my provider, who is a lovely lady? Can you work together with her to facilitate something?
Rod, 90% of the arrangements we put in place, we're actually contacted by other providers, and we work with them to do it.
That's wonderful.
That's how it mostly works, because they're the ones who a lot of clients may not have heard about them, but other providers, you're in the sector, you're watching news, you might watch your video channel, you hear about it, and they contact us, and look, we find a way to make that work, and we do it together.
Okay, well, these questions come from the person who is helping me, Natalie from Simple Solutions. I'll give them a plug because it's their rooms that we're using to broadcast this from, okay? And they've been giving them to us for nothing. In fact, they've been assisting us financially to do it, so that's wonderful.
It looks $1 million.
You like it? Good, thank you. Just got to do something with the hair.
I love how you got the ocean just out your window there. That's fantastic.
Yes, I just wish that was actually real. But
anyway. It's not real, is it? Jeez.
No, mate. It's a bit of TV magic. But anyway,
okay.
Let me just ask some of the questions. Which model of ILO do you think works best, and which one is the most popular after people have given it some thought?
Look, good question. Sometimes we'll have a week or two where it's only people talking about hosts, and then we'll have a week or two people are only talking about co-residents. And look, I don't think any at this moment, from when I look at our numbers, there's none it's really quite mixed. It's really quite mixed. Now the answer, what's the best one? I know it's the easy answer. And I know that you probably know the answer yourself. It depends on the person. It depends on their interests. It depends on the level of motivation, the level of confidence to maybe take some steps. People might have to go through some steps, Rod. So maybe someone moving out of home for the first time, they might be 35 and they're moving out of home for the first time. To suddenly
they could be quite
live
lonely
alone,
if they went into living on their own.
They may well want to live alone, but that's a big step.
Yep.
Well, to go to a host for a year is a really good interim step for some people, because it's like you're away from all those. People don't realise how much soft support you get from your family. They don't, as my mum always said,
you never appreciate it until you lose it.
You won't know what I did for you. And you move out, you live by yourself, you know it within a month, because the dishes don't do themselves.
No, they
the lawn's
don't.
coming in your front window. The neighbours telling you to bloody move your car. You realise.
It's even harder to ask for $10 to borrow $10 off the next door neighbour, isn't it? But
you run out of money. You look at it. So look, a host there can be. It's not just maybe. It's kind of an interim arrangement. Maybe one option, and then you go on to something else. Short answer.
Yep. Okay. Now it brings me to another point, because I find this interesting. I would imagine a lot of people have a real gusto to get out and do things, and then they might discover that they're lonely because they've never been alone or whatever, or all sorts of things. So the next question actually from Natalie was, do you think that the system with people is sustainable, or are you finding that after a period of time, people are wanting to return to their previous arrangements because it's just too much of a shift?
No, the research that the NDIA did before they launched these schemes was pretty thorough. And when you look and you go and ask people, because these things have been done in different places around the world, there's been different trials, and you look at what people get the most from, and what people enjoy the most, and what people report as the highest satisfaction, these arrangements that the NDIA is now launching score far and away higher than the group living arrangements.
Fantastic.
The hosts score very, very high. people end up building real connections. You know, people are people. People are people. You jump in a car in Sydney, you drive down to Melbourne, and you get your best of friends. You might have just met each other when you get in the car. And
Yep.
look, these arrangements in their various shapes and forms, hosts, co-residents, sharing with people, it's all about relationships. And there's nothing more life affirming, and there's nothing more rewarding than living with people, sharing the ups and downs of life, and being a part of each other. And I think that's what maybe is not necessarily in a group home situation. So research shows these things are pretty successful.
And you think they're pretty sustainable, which I find really encouraging. I'm going to just grab a couple more questions from Natalie, then I'll get you to hold on and while we wrap up the show. But don't go away for me. And you will come back again?
Sure, yep, no problems.
That'd be great. I guess one of the questions is, how hard do you think it is going to be to get an ILO arrangement through the NDIS?
At the moment, it goes pretty quick because there's, you asked the questions about the timing, Rod. The NDIS is basically it's a soft launch, if I say it like that. The original plan of the NDIS was to do it from January. That's kind of been slightly delayed with all the things going on. And but they are doing these arrangements, but they're doing them on a case by case with providers like us who've been in the trial. And they're getting approved and in place pretty quickly. There is a concern that once there's kind of towards the end of the year, when there's sort of more of a big formal launch, there'll be a bit of a rush on. And
no kidding.
And I think that there'll be, there's only so many people can fill in, at the NDIS can approve so many things.
But they're committed to it. They're really committed to this. Then they're not going to make it difficult.
Yeah. But look, I think at the moment, now it goes pretty quick in most cases. I just hope the waiting lists don't get too big.
Okay, now we've got a lot more to talk about in the next show. One of the things that you do with My Supports is you have, I think you call them neighbourhood centres throughout Australia. It's slightly off topic, but can other providers like my friend get involved in your neighbourhood centre system so that you all support one another?
Look, it's not centres, Rod. It's what we call neighbourhood teams.
Sorry, teams.
So what we're not like a traditional provider. You'll see we do a few things different, but that's probably the centre of it. We don't work like a traditional provider that has a big head office and has regional centres and cars driving around with the brand. What we were believers in, what drove us is that, and I guess that's from our own experience of having a disability, we just wanted to live in community and be supported by the communities which we live. Now, the model we do is what we call the neighbourhood teams, and that's a small group of support workers led by a neighbourhood team leader, and they support a small group of people with a disability, 10, 20, 25 people. Now, that's our unit. That's what we call a neighbourhood team, and that's people living right locally in your own neighbourhoods. And what it's about is people being supported by people in their community, and because there's a lot of spin-off benefits in terms of connections, who can help get a job, knowing someone at the footy club, and so that's how we support. And we have almost 80 of these neighbourhood teams around Australia. We're adding all the time, and that's how we deliver services. So we don't have offices. We have one office, and that's it. We're all doing everything in the community.
It's like me. I've only got one producer. It's very difficult. But anyway, look, please wait while I just wrap up the show if you can. I just want to chat to you for a bit. We look forward to having you back again because, look, this is way too big a subject to be dealt with in 30, 40 minutes. We really appreciate not just what you're doing on our program, but the fact that My Supports is doing what it's doing. And for me, it's very, very heartening that more than 50% of your staff are people with disability.
I'll just say, Rod, that's
Yep.
over 50% either a disability or a family member of somebody who has a disability.
Good enough. Still got the
So
thing.
I think carers, as you know, play a big role as well.
Well, we did a program last week with a lovely carer called Julie, who was talking about her daughter Rachel, and without, it's just a wonderful synergy, if you like. Difficult at times for both, but wonderful nevertheless. Hang around for a sec, Terry.
Yep.
Folks, that's our first little segment on the new ILOs with Terry Matter oh, my brain just went. Terry, you can hit me later. It's just been a wonderful, wonderful half an hour to spend with him, and we hope to do so again. Don't forget that our program has been supported in good old Hervey Bay by Simple Solutions, which are an NDIS group, someone who provides and someone who supports and trains, and also Hello World Travel. See, now when I get one thing wrong, my brain goes too much. Hello World Travel here in Hervey Bay as well, who really supported us very well. Please, if you have time, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need people to subscribe and comment, whether you like it or don't like it, whatever you like, and be a part of our program, because we need lots of people involved to find out what you want us to talk about. And as far as Terry coming back, if you've got questions you would like me to ask him, please send those questions to the spin at accessibleglobe.tv. That's the spin at accessibleglobe.tv, and we'll ask Terry on the next time we have him on. Thanks very much, and see you next time on The Spin.